In the little town in which I grew up, there lived at that time a most remarkable man. He was not only tall and handsome and rich and famous, but he was very generous and he was very inventive. One of his better inventions was the most powerful steam locomotive ever made. They still use his Shay locomotives in the Rocky Mountains. And it's an example of generosity. One winter in his magnificent machine shop, he made sleds for over 100 of us local youngsters and gave them to us. And yet, this outstanding man died childless. That struck me as a tragedy. I felt that God has planted some of his best seed in our little town, and it had died out. They named schools and streets for him. They erected this magnificent bronze plaque which recounts all his special accomplishments. But the genes which formed an important part in the makeup of this outstanding man are gone. And that is the loss with which I'm concerned and have been concerned in other places ever since. You see, man is far from perfect, but he can be improved. And the key to this is to increase the proportion of advantageous genes in the human gene pool. As I matured, I wrote and spoke and read about the same situation, and eventually wrote a book on the subject. And the manuscript, the name of the book, by the way, was The Future of Man, and it seriously addressed that question. The manuscript of the book came to the attention of Herman Muller. Now, Herman J. Muller was the leading geneticist of his day. He asked if he could come and visit me in California, where I lived, and in the next few weeks he came, spent several days off and on with me, and during that time we had many discussions, not only about the manuscript of the book, which he improved immensely, but about the repository for germinal choice. I had proposed such a repository in the book, which is why he was interested in me. But he had proposed it before I did, so it was his idea, and it's his name, the repository. He considered the concept of the repository for germinal choice was the finest contribution of his life. He considered that more significant than the research on mutations for which he won a Nobel Prize. So that's quite a way to emphasize the project. We never really became active in it. While we were still cogitating and talking, Dr. Muller died. So the whole project was quiescent for years while I was busy making lenses. And however, when I finally disposed of my lens project, then I had the leisure and the wherewithal to begin to actually put the repository for germinal choice into practice.
This was
and that we did in 1980. I had been recruiting for a year or two, off and on, and when I had accumulated germinal donations from 3 Nobelists, then we called a conference and announced the availability of this service. And from then on, the repository has been in the public eye.
Who's the target population for this service that you're supplying here? You're just making this germinal material available. It's not to anyone.
The target people are couples who want children but can't have them because the husband is infertile.
The first year, in 1980, 1981, did you receive very many requests for information or requests?
Quite a few requests for information, but not many real requests for service. there was a lot of questioning about this new venture.
The repository seems to rely on the curiosity of the news media to propagate the message of this development. Are they doing a good job today? It's 1994. Do you have more requests for semen than you can fill?
Oh yes, the media find us of interest and tell our story pretty well, and so that we're quite widely known. Yes, we do have many requests for service. As a matter of fact, we have more than a year's possible service waiting, so that our real limitation is not the media or the information about us, but the donors, the number of donors that I have, which meet our standards.
Well, these pretty rigorous standards, can you tell us give us a brief outline of what the standards are?
Yes, a donor to the repository has to be, first of all, almost perfectly healthy. Health is the most valuable heritable trait. Runner-up in importance is intelligence. So our donors all to be very bright. As a matter of fact, all but one or two have an IQ of better than 130. Very impressive.
Very impressive. Are they? You started out with Nobel Prize-winning physicists. Some of these men were in their 50s and 60s. Is that still the case today?
No, most of our men are under 40, and they are none of them Nobelists. The Nobelists was, we started with Nobelists because I thought, let's begin at the top. But they don't make the best donors. And oddly enough, when we began to offer younger donors, nobody chose the older man.
Is any of the older germinal material still available?
No longer, no.
No. Okay. How many people?
But we're still researching Nobel donors for new ones, but we have none at the moment, and we have no storage, no old storage.
No old storage. How many people are prospective clients or customers of the repository for germinal choice in the United States? Do you have any statistics?
Relatively a small proportion of the population, maybe 1 or 2%, are married couples who want children but can't have them because the husband is infertile.
That's still 2.5, 3 million people.
That's right. That's more than we can take care of.
Are the requirements for the recipients as rigorous as those of the donors that you've outlined?
For the recipients, the requirements are quite rigorous, but of course not quite as rigorous as for the donors. For one thing, we can only select among the couples who come to us, and that choice isn't as wide as my selectivity for donors. I can go to any man in the country, and none of them are hurt by being asked, although most of them will decline.
There are people who object to this project of yours. It's been the recipient of some negative publicity, and some people even go out of their way to attack the project. Some have even claimed that it doesn't work. How do you respond to these accusations?
Well, first of all, it is working as well or better than Muller and I could ever have hoped. But of course, it's only partway on its way. The final outcome will be, what can these people, these youngsters, accomplish when they're grown?
You have been quoted as saying that it is difficult to find a real problem with this project because everybody wins. The wife becomes a mother and carries the best child she can possibly carry, and the germinal donor has more offspring than he would have otherwise. You sum it up by saying the child has the best possible start in life.